All right, ladies and gentlemen, big week in combat sports, and I'm really honored to have this next guest back on the program. You know him from his multiple appearances on Submission Radio, his legendary run in the UFC, the work that he's done with the PFL, Misfits Boxing. This man just makes everything better whenever he touches down, and he's just touched down here on Submission Radio. Dan Hardy, welcome back to Submission Radio, man.
Always good to be with you, my friend. It's been a little while since we spoke. I thought I'd better have a catch up with you. Lots of big fights coming up for us to talk about.
Yeah. I was messaging Dan Hardy, and he's just like, "Fuck, man, this guy just won't stop messaging me." I better respond. Hey, of course, I just want to quickly kick it off with the biggest news in combat sports, and that is, of course, this John Cena heel turn. No, I'm kidding. John Cena became a bad guy on the weekend, Dan.
Oh, is that right? You know,
yeah. It was a big deal. It's taken like 40 years, but
well, you would be proud of me. I got all my old WWF cards, literally WWF from before they changed the name. I put them all in little plastic sleeves the other day. One of my guys on the PFL team is a real trading card collector, so I've got all my Hulk Hogan's and my Undertakers from like.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have like a favorite? Do you have a favorite wrestler?
You know, I didn't necessarily have a favorite one. I loved the characters. You know what I mean? I was really. I mean, the thing is, it was difficult to get on TV when I was a kid. It wasn't really accessible to us, but the trading cards were a thing. So I kind of learned about the characters through the cards. You know, my favorites. I mean, Legion of Doom. I loved Legion of Doom. The Bushwhackers, the Nasty Boys. You know, I particularly like the tag teams where they were quite similar. The Rockers with obviously, you know, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. But we used to trade the cards at school, as you know, as I'm sure you did, and so I have a good selection of the really like old mid-90s cards, and they were just in like an old ice cream container in my office. And I told my colleague in PFL and James Steers, and he was like, "No, put them all in plastic sleeves and make sure they're safe." So I went through and did that the other day. I've got hundreds of them. It's pretty cool to look through though.
Dude, I feel like you and Veronica would make a great tag team. You guys should consider a bit of a run in the WWE. For those that don't know, I'm doing pro wrestling training. I thought I'd mix it up because the MMA stuff, I was just getting too banged up. So turns out the pro wrestling training hurts more than all the boxing and the kickboxing I've done in the past. But speaking of boxing, of course, the big news that I did refer to is this Tank Davis fight on the weekend, man. I just want to quickly get your thoughts before we get into a little bit of UFC as well. What do you make of the fact that, you know, Tank had this performance where a lot of people believe that he lost, a lot of people feel like the cards were wrong, and he's in this weird place now where he went from being this guy who was absolutely unbeatable to now people sort of questioning a bunch of stuff about him?
You know, he's an unusual one, Tank. I really enjoy watching him, just generally following his career, but you can tell that he's quite a turbulent character, I think, and you know, it seems to me like those demons do follow him around, and sometimes he's having to fight them off, you know, in front of the cameras and stuff. I don't know, to be honest. The other thing as well with Davis, and this is more of a technical thing, I suppose. But he seems to be one of those fighters because he has such power in his hands. He kind of holds the ring. He kind of has a presence in there without doing a great deal. And sometimes I think he feels like he's doing a lot more than he actually is. Like another one that comes to mind for an MMA context is Peter Yan. You know what I mean? It's like Peter Yan just looks like he's dominating all the time in his mind because he's always kind of, you know, holding people off because they're afraid of how dangerous he is. But then sometimes the fights can slip away from him because he's not actually putting the points on the scoreboard, as it were. It's an interesting one. I need to go back and watch that fight because I was kind of in and out of sleep, and so I don't really feel like I have a strong opinion on it as far as the scorecards go. But just generally, I love watching Tank. He's so explosive and full of character.
I just think it's crazy because in the combat sports world, it's like no matter how dominant you are, how great you are, you're always going to hit a point where someone was going to beat you, and then everyone's going to start questioning how good you are or your leg. You know what I mean? And it's crazy considering, like, when you see some of the legends, like people like GSP or the Khabibs, and you're like, yeah, like it makes sense. Like these guys went out on top without someone coming in there and like beating them, and then, you know, their legacy being in question. Because I feel like, I don't know, there's this weird thing with MMA fight fans, right? It's like as soon as someone great has adversity. It's almost like there's a bunch of fans that stop appreciating what they've done in a way. Like it's weird, right? It's this weird,
Well,
relationship.
I think we have a short-term memory, you know. I think that's what it is, you know. And you know, us guys that have been following the sport for a while, we can remember, you know, say Aldo was a good example. Like we remember Aldo when he was coming through WEC looking like an absolute murderer, and then coming into the UFC and looking like no one could touch him. And then there was a new group of fans that came in alongside McGregor. They kind of got caught up in the excitement of McGregor trash talking him, stealing his belt at the press conference and all that. And then obviously knocking Aldo out in quick time. And it almost did McGregor a disservice because he'd recruited all of these new fans that had come in to watch this fight, but they didn't know how good Aldo was. And because McGregor made it look so easy, Aldo was dismissed. But at the same time, what McGregor had done to him was almost dismissed. You know what I mean? It is like we do have a short-term memory, and you know, people stumble and fall in this sport all the time in front of us because you're at the top for such a short period of time, you know. And people that we love to follow that like Chris Weidman's a good one, you know what I mean? He's had such bad luck towards the end of his career. Ever since he threw that spinning hook kick against Luke Rockhold, it's just been like a turbulent journey for him. And you know, now with the New York card where he didn't even get to fight, and it's just it's a weird thing to kind of. I mean, obviously, the end of my career was not really on my terms. It was just kind of right, you're fighting, and now you're not. Whereas, like, you look at other guys, and I would have been in that same spot. I would have, I'm sure of it, where I'd have just kept going back to it. I can get one more win, and then if I feel good, then I'm going to go again. And it's weirdly addictive, but at the same time, with the eyes on the sport and with social media now, we face more critique than we've ever done before.
Oh man, it's crazy. And I was going to say, we were talking with Luke Thomas about this. What do you make of this criminally misused approach on Jose Aldo with the UFC? Like, you've got a living legend, right? You've got him come back. Somehow he's like changed divisions, still going, still looks pretty good. These are the fights that we're putting him in. These are the guys that we're putting him in for these last few fights. Like, has there ever been worse booking for a legend like this who's rearing and ready to go and who's actually looking decent for like where he is at his age? It's insane, right?
It's just the system, isn't it? You know, it's the machine of combat sports, and I think it's even more obvious within the UFC because it's, you know, I guess that's the downside of the majority of the fighters being under one banner. You know, the benefit is you get to see all the fights. You get to see all the fights that you want to see because everyone's in the same ranking group. But then the downside is the old guys are going to get used as food for the younger guys coming up. Like we were just talking about it, recorded the podcast, the Outlaw Picks podcast today on 313, obviously. And I looked down King Green's record. And you kind of see the same thing. Like he's been the tee up for a bunch of different people, and he sometimes plays the spoiler like he did with the Grant Dawson fight. But like the Paddy Pimblett fight, you and I both know that Green has got the ability and the power to catch anybody in the division and really hurt them. But he's always used as the tee up. You know, even with Jim Miller, who's kind of a bit long in the tooth as well. Like it was almost like they wanted him to get a win at 300 to like celebrate that moment. And I don't know. We're disposable, aren't we? Ultimately, you know, you're a commodity in the sport of mixed martial arts. As soon as you sign that contract, I would much rather. And I've talked about it within the PFL. You know, Don Davis is sick of me talking about Masters division, but you know, the Nate Diaz Hamzat Chimaev fights is not something that I want to see. It makes me feel uncomfortable to watch it just because I don't feel like both fighters have got a fair shout, and I'm not interested in unfair matchups. But, you know, as soon as it becomes Tony Ferguson, Nate Diaz, now that's an interesting fight. And I feel like both of those guys have got a good shout. So it's a weird thing. I don't think it has to happen. I just think it's the nature of combat sports right now. And I guess the system that's been put in place.
Yeah, the crazy thing is Zahabi. Obviously, we like Zahabi. He's a great fighter, but he's 37 years old. The guy that's fighting Aldo. It's like, what are we doing here? We don't want to do like Sandhagen or like O'Malley or like do like Dominic Cruz before he got injured or like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like 100 people you would rather see Aldo fight than Harby at UFC 315. Like, makes absolutely no sense. All right, guys, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, MANSCAPED, who make this podcast possible. I'm, of course, talking about the Chairman Plus, the electric foil shaver by MANSCAPED, placing the power of a barber quality shave in the palm of your hand. Whether you're suiting up for the boardroom, getting ready for a date, or setting the stage for cuffing season, the Chairman Plus delivers professional grade performance tailored to your style. It's luxury reinvented for the modern man who demands more. Ready to step up? Why not join the trusted movement? Over 12 million men. Visit manscaped.com now. Use the code word submission. Get 20% off and free shipping now, and you keep this podcast going. You support this show and you support yourself. Just quickly, what makes the Chairman Plus stand out? Well, it's all about versatility and precision. It comes with 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, uses 3-blade foil for a close, smooth shave, has skin-safe technology to help reduce razor burn, and of course, the Chairman Plus is waterproof, so it lets you shave right in the shower. And by the way, how about this? 60 minutes of runtime on a single charge, so you're sorted no matter where you go. Manscaped also has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so why not try it risk-free? Use the code word submission. 20% off and free shipping today. Risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. Manscaped keeps this show alive and keeps your dating life and your smoothness alive too. Jump on Manscaped right now. And guys, I just want to talk to you about our other sponsors, SAILY. SAILY is a groundbreaking eSIM that has you sorted wherever you go in the world. Super low prices, super easy to use. All you got to do is download this app. Have a look at me. I'm in the app. I choose the destination to where I need to go. Boom, click a couple of buttons, and I'm set. Forget about taking out your SIM card. Forget about lining up in long lines at the airport. Forget about having to change your phone number and everything about your phone. SAILY has you sorted. It's easy, it's simple. It comes with all the security features that you need. Why not just use the amount of money that you need for the destination that you need without having to sign up to crazy plans that go for months at a time that you have to get out of, or paying per day crazy amounts of money and coming back at the end of the holiday to having to take out a loan just to pay off the amount of money that you spent on the holiday using your phone. So do this right now. Go to saily.com/submission or click the link in the bio below. Get 15% off your first purchase with the code word submission. That's 15% off your first purchase with the code word submission. Get SAILY in your life and change it forever. And now, back to the program. This has been popping up all over the internet. I got to get your thoughts on it. Just changing topics for a second. Bryce Mitchell is coming back. He's going to be fighting Jean Silva. I want to just get your thoughts on this whole situation, Dan, because we've got someone like Bryce Mitchell who made the comments that he made. And then, of course, you know, freedom of speech. It's important for people to be able to say what they believe, but then also it does sort of infringe. But sometimes when you say certain things, it just gets so ridiculous. You're like, dude, this is just outrageous. Now, Bryce Mitchell is going to be fighting Jean Silva. And of course, the UFC is a promotion machine. So this is going to be a fight that everyone's going to tune into because they want to see Bryce Mitchell probably get his ass kicked by Jean Silva, who just came off a big win. My question to you is, what do you make of the way that the promotion is using Bryce Mitchell? Do you think it's ethical to use a guy that said the stuff that he said to basically sell pay-per-views? Do you think it makes sense to sort of keep things open because we do have freedom of speech and people can say what they want? What is your read on this whole situation? Because it's a bit of a wacky one, right?
It is a weird one. I mean, I think we're in unprecedented times anyway. We know with the way that social media has changed the world, and you know we're heading towards everything AI.
Yeah.
And I just honestly, I it's kind of weird. Like when you said let's change the topic, for whatever reason, the first question that popped into my head was, is the Earth flat or round? And then you said Bryce Mitchell.
Is it? Well, where do you sit on that? Where do you sit on that?
Well, I mean, it's a globe. It's like I just
great.
I
just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to upset you. Okay.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like in my very very limited experience of travel, like I've been on a boat watching cruise ships rise out of the equator, rise over the horizon when I've been sitting on the equator on a completely still ship. You know, it's just like it's just an odd thing. Some days I find it funny. And then some days I find it depressing. And Bryce is, bless him, is
the misinformation that's out there, and then people kind of, yeah.
I mean, you know, we're living in idiocracy. I feel like this every day now. That movie, it just feels like it's ringing true more and more. But look, like Bryce is a product of a system that has lost his faith, right? Like and I don't want to get into it because it's a
Of
massive, massive
course.
can of worms. But like, there are reasons not to trust the government, and there are like lies that have been told that have been proven to be lies, and conspiracies that actually didn't turn out to be conspiracies. So, then it gets to the stage where people go, well, hang on a minute, how do I know that the Earth's flat? Do you know what I mean? And it's like there's so much doubt around us, and so much doubt just generally, like in the media all the time, where if you say the same lie enough, it becomes the truth. And I think some people use that as their game plan, and I think some people fall into that as a trap. And I feel like Bryce Mitchell, bless him, has got, sawdust for brains, and he's watering it with electrolytes, and it's not going to do anything for him. Like, it is, I kind of feel sad, but I kind of feel frustrated. I was actually watching a bit of flat Earth stuff the other day, and there were two guys, and one of them's Professor Dave, and one of them's Flat Earth Dave. And like, Professor Dave's like clearly a very educated person. He's done a lot of work to grow his brain, and I could see how angry he was at Flat Earth Dave. And I'm watching it like, oh, bless him, he's just an internet fool. But then I'm also looking at the McDojo guys and getting angry, because I feel like what they're doing is potentially very dangerous, right? Like, there's a crew of people in the Midlands near me, and they teach this nonsense where they use baseball caps for self-defense and stuff.
What? Baseball caps?
Honestly, the thing that makes me angry about it, if they were just doing it for exercise in the park, hit some pads, whatever, it's fine. But you're giving people that can't fight, don't know how to defend themselves, a false sense of confidence that they can, right? So like, and I'm only likening this with the flat Earth thing because of how it makes me feel. Like, I see the McDojo stuff, and I'm like, in a situation where someone would normally have the smarts to run away, you're instilling them with the confidence that they can fight when they can't. You know what I mean? So like, I feel that frustration towards the McDojo crew, much like Professor Dave felt the frustration towards Flat Earth Dave. So I'm kind of starting to see that different perspective, but a part of me is still very kind of forgiving and like, I mean, pity is an ugly word, isn't it? But I feel sorry for Bryce, because I feel like his world's very small, and I feel like he's looking down the center of a toilet roll and not seeing much more of it, bless him. And the ridicule's not going to help, because it's only going to further embed him into his opinions. Because that, it seems to be a very American trait. You know what I mean? If you attack someone's beliefs, they become even more embedded into their beliefs. You know what I mean? So it's almost patriotic to stand his ground. So we have to be careful how much we're attacking him, because, I don't think it's good for his health. And he's also taking punches and potentially going to take a big right hand in his next fight. So we need to keep a close eye on him. We as much as these people can become targets of ridicule at times, they are actually real people, and they really do exist, and they have to have a life outside of MMA, and we want them all to be healthy and sane. So yeah. And I have to remind myself of those things sometimes as well,
Of course, man. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, even just looking at it from Bryce's situation, yeah, like you're this product that's being used to draw people, where a bunch of people might tune in to hope that you lose. And then there's a real person behind that at the end of it that still has to deal with the aftermath and ramifications of it too. So there are things about Bryce that I feel like, sometimes he does get taken advantage of by like certain podcasts that try to get him on to say stuff, all that kind of stuff. But I also want to say that, around the world, people feel like they're forgotten about, like they're going through hard times, and they feel like the government's abandoned them, and they feel like they're not, the rich guy that's getting the tax cuts, and they're not in the middle there. And, they may never be able to buy, like here in Australia, you need $1 million to buy a house, and you don't have access to education, and then you don't have access to this and that. So then you go online and you're outraged, and you band together with a bunch of people, and you feel like you're a part of something. And what becomes like a wholesome thing can become a negative thing. And I just feel like there's a lot of people that are forgotten about on the internet. And then when people say, well, because I've noticed the comments, like I spoke to Luke Thomas about it, and man, in the comments, like wild stuff that you would never expect, right? Like 90% of it. And it just looks like a lot of people. And I think, the demo as well, younger males that love MMA just feel like they're forgotten about or maybe pushed aside in certain demos. I can understand where they're coming from, because I came from Ukraine. I migrated here to Australia. Like I went through some stuff myself, like all that kind of stuff. Like not the richest guy in town. And I work with social justice here in Australia, trying to alleviate poverty here in Australia through different programs. So I totally get it. I work with a lot of people like that. But it's also, I just want to, for everyone that's watching out here, conversation, coming together, figuring out ways to fix things in a positive way. That's the way to do it. And, being outraged and jumping on board things that you don't necessarily believe can be dangerous for you. So just a little warning out there for people that are watching you and me right now. Like, we're not saying you guys, we don't have anything against you guys. We're feeling you right now. People can't afford to pay for their electricity, their food, keep a house over their head, and the government's not really doing much about it in a lot of ways. We feel you, but let's not jump to conclusions and accidentally hurt other people who might be going through the same thing. But now we're also talking about their beliefs and all sorts of stuff as well.
Yeah,
that doesn't work. Anyway, that's my little soapbox moment. Everyone's going to say I suck in the comment section. I get it.
No, you're right. Look, it's very well said. You're right. There's a lot of disenfranchised people around the world, and there are a few individuals, a few characters around the world that are certainly, tapping into that vulnerability, much like
monetizing it, basically monetizing.
Yeah,
it, right?
I mean, they're tapping into those people that are feeling like ignored and left out, and there are a lot of people around like that. But I mean, history repeats itself, right? We can see these patterns back into history, and we've just got to be a bit smarter. And with the emergence of the internet, we've got this massive disconnection socially, as well as the ability to be able to turn it on itself and come together. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I still have hope. And I'm in a big group. I won't say too much about it, but I'm in a big group of fighters, all involved in this class action lawsuit, and the positivity.
Big check coming in the mail. Big check,
man. I'm not. That's beside that. I'm not.
Yeah.
What's amazing is that this group's nearly at 500 people now, and the names in the group. Like you want to do the "I'm not worthy" Wayne's World to the people in the group. It's just. And it feels like an incredibly powerful group of people, and the positivity and love amongst all these old and young MMA fighters it lifts my spirits every day. And I know a lot of the other fighters in the group feel the same. So,
do you guys have like a group where you chat, or like is there a way to communicate with each other?
We are. I've never been more linked to the MMA community than I am right now. I'm in communication with people that I've maybe waved at from across the room before once, but people that I've watched their careers all the way through. And honestly, it's like I'll wake up in the morning and turn my phone out of flight mode and get 300 messages in this group. But it's all like, you guys are awesome. I can't believe how many awesome people are in this group. I've got loads of respect for everybody here. And so I don't know. I feel like all of a sudden there's this gathering of very, very powerful and prominent people in mixed martial arts that are just invested in the betterment of the sport. So that certainly is one thing. I just want to give everybody in that group a shout out. It's one thing that's giving me a bit of positivity every day right now. So thanks for that.
Dude, I love that. That's a real silver lining I didn't expect, because this is a group of people that not many people can relate to, that are very individual, all on their own. And it's almost like in this vulnerable point in their careers, because, not a lot of them are able to sort of go on and talk to this with a lot of other people. This is a great opportunity for a community to come together. 500 people strong. That's amazing, man. That's a really good way to finish it out. And before we wrap up as well, man, obviously Misfits Boxing, you're involved with that. That's exciting. But I want to just quickly turn the page to PFL. There's some big things right around the corner, big cards coming up. I'm really excited for all sorts of stuff that's happening. Of course, the big world tournament is happening in April as well. So there's huge stakes on the line. Break it down for me, man. What are you most excited about that's coming up with PFL? What do people need to keep an eye open for?
Look, I'm excited about this shift in the format. I mean, I'm getting ready for the kicking off of the European season, and we're going to be launching Africa this year as well as a couple of other regions coming.
Australia, I believe, right?
Oh, it's coming. I've seen the frameworks for it, the fighters that we're talking to, and it's very, very exciting. I'll be making trips over to see you guys for sure.
Yes.
I mean, this year we've got. Say that again.
Stay at my house.
I'll be calling you, my friend. I'll need somewhere to stay. You won't be able to get rid of me. I love Australia. I mean, we've got the kicking off of the tournaments, the world tournaments. I'm excited about this shift in format. It's so clean. It's so straightforward. The fighters know what they're getting into. You win and you move forward, and there's a prize money at the end of it that everyone's chasing. And kind of bringing a bit more structure to the championships, having standing champions in the PFL is going to be the thing for 2025 as well. So there's lots of good things to look forward to. But these tournaments are going to be great. I mean, 8 fighters in each bracket. Every single one of them's a killer. We've got former Bellator champs. We've got former UFC vets. We've got returning PFL champs coming in to compete. It's going to be big. It's going to be big. And big news, Paul Hughes is coming back as well. We're just getting paperwork lined up ready for his return, which is incredibly exciting.
Dude, you know what I love about it? Like, you guys give a real option to fighters. It's important to have options outside of the UFC, to have places to fight and, grow your career outside of the regional scene. I feel like it's just, lately there's been too much negative publicity with, a handful of fighters wanting to get their release and sort of making it public. I think people sort of forget about how crap it would be for all of these fighters if there was no PFL, right? If there was no option for them to go and fight and be able to grow their careers and have a platform to do it like PFL.
Yeah, look, I'm not gonna say too much because it's not my place to say it, and I'm sure that Don Davis is gonna call me as soon as he hears this, and he's like, "Well, you should be saying all these things," but there's a lot more to the story. There's a lot more paperwork and nonsense that has come with where the PFL is at right now, and all this drama with these fighters asking for releases. It's a horrible circumstance, especially to be on the inside and watch fighters that I love. Gegard Mousasi, one of my favorites of all time, have this conflict with the promotion that I'm working with, and I know I can see what's going on behind the scenes. I can see where this conflict is coming from, and it's unnecessary and it's unfortunate. But we're all learning in this sport. I mean, I was a fighter for a long time, and everything I've done since then, I've been learning on the job. And I'm very much doing it with this here at the PFL, and I do feel like we're doing a lot of positive things, and I feel like we're bringing something that the sport desperately needs right now. Like this monopolization from the top, I'm really starting to see the negative effects of it through the pooling of the best talent in the gyms and in certain places, and it's making the sport stagnate, which is a whole conversation for another day. I could write you a dissertation on it. But I very much feel like what the PFL is creating is a way out of that, a platform around the world for different regions to really focus on. Like the PFL MENA championships were amazing. Like we had world champions on the top of the card, and Hatan walking out as an amateur got a bigger cheer than everybody else in the arena. Like there's something special going on in the Middle East with that region right now. But if we don't give them a platform, we don't see it. Right. And Australia, you guys desperately need a platform there for your fighters because the talent there is amazing. Same with Africa. We've seen that with Europe now. I feel like I've gone through different waves where I feel like disenfranchised with the sport because I feel like we're spiraling down, and then something positive will happen, will lift me up. And with this group of fighters around the class action right now, and with the direction that the PFL is going in 2025, I feel like we're moving back in the direction that we should. I've got a smile on my face again, and I'm excited for this year.
Well, dude, thank you for all the great work that you do. Thanks for making the sport a better place for all the fighters, man. And I can't wait to see what's coming up next. Of course, check out the Misfits Boxing as well. Dan's going to be doing a great job trying to navigate that ship as it goes into the dock. Of course, Dylan Danis and KSI and Darren Till. So good luck with that, Dan. But if there's a man to do it, you're the man to do it, and you are the man. Thank you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. Always a pleasure.